I'm talking to the pop duo Right Said Fred. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey Neil, you right?
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Um, let's kick straight in because you are iconic singers and songwriters and performers.
Okay.
Now, Richard, prior
Yes.
to forming the group with Fred, you were a session bassist with other well-known artists.
Well, I did some session work and also video work. So some people like Bowie and Jagger and who was the other one? Bowie and I did three with Jagger with Bowie. But anyway, a lot of it was video stuff, promo stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
And a limited amount of studio work because I'm too slow on the bass. I cost too much. I cost too much money. So it was video.
What was it like working alongside other iconic stars?
Well, we've both done that. I mean, Fred did some work with Bob Dylan, and I did some stuff with as I say, with Bowie and Jagger and stuff. It was the thing with Bowie was interesting because you realise that actually, despite the image and all the hype that goes on around stars, they're basically just people. They're just people getting on with their lives and doing what they know they feel they do well. And everybody has their sad stories and their happy stories, and they're just people. That's what it is. I mean, so it was a bit of an eye opener for me personally because I realised that it wasn't quite the dream scene that you think it is. That show business is full of just regular people doing what they do.
Absolutely. I can never understand why people go all starry-eyed. Did you ever go starry-eyed working alongside?
No,
Jagger?
No, the only person I think I would have gone starry-eyed in front of is Frank Sinatra if I'd met him. I think I would have gone a little bit sort of mumbly, having if I met Sinatra. And we took Mum rather to the Albert Hall for one of his last performances, and we got in because we knew the security people, and they got us in there, and they said sometimes Sinatra goes down to the green room after a show and has a quick drink before he slides off. So they let us into the green room in case he came down and we bumped into him. But on that particular occasion, he just sodded off and went straight to the car. So we never saw him. But he's the only guy, probably. Yeah, he's the only guy.
What about you, Fred?
No, I've never been starstruck. I was when I was a kid, I suppose, with like guitar. But as an adult, no. I mean, even when I was playing guitar with Dylan, I was you're aware of the presence and what the crazy amount of content the guys created, but I wasn't starstruck. It was just wanted me to be good and on it, and so no, starstruck's not the right word. Sort of respectful, obviously. But I would be to anybody really. That's they're rude to me. But I never felt no. I mean, we've very fortunate, met a lot of fortunate and unfortunate, I suppose you could say. We've met a lot of very famous people, and even when we met the Queen, I mean, she's a human being. She was a lady, and
I wasn't starstruck with her.
No, mum and a grandmum, and didn't think much of it really.
Yeah.
Just that was it. I mean, we tend to take people on face value. Really, we don't really. If people are nice to us, we're nice to them. If they're not nice to us, we're not very nice to them. So
people always say to us, "Do you know any famous people?" And actually, we don't.
No, we don't hang out.
We don't hang out with famous people. We don't know any famous people. We don't.
All our friends are, they run shops or small businesses or restaurants, and IT or whatever. They just do regular jobs. We don't have famous friends. No.
Yeah.
Wow, that's quite surprising, actually.
Well,
because you've moved in some really big circles, haven't you? Really? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, the only guys we had this conversation in another interview.
Michael Hutchins was nice.
Yeah, we hung out with Michael Hutchins a little bit. He was a lovely man, and he didn't really like the after show glam thing very well. That's what he told us, and so I met him a few times. We met him a few times at hotel bars and stuff, and we used to hang out and. He was a nice guy, but really, we don't do the after show thing. And
did it once, didn't really like it.
Yeah, I mean, we did it a lot to begin with, and then we did it a lot when we had a sort of our second run of success in Europe in 2001. We did a lot of after shows then because it was sort of part and parcel with promo. So if you've got a show sponsored by I don't know ProSieben or RTL or someone. they run the after show, so you're sort of obligated to go. So we did, which is fine. But when we're not obligated, Rich and I tend to leave. As soon as we played, we leave. We go to the hotel bar, and we try and stay away from as many people as possible.
Sometimes what we do is we if we're doing a headline show, we ask to go on support so that we can get to the bar quicker.
Yeah. So we go and have a word with the support.
Have a word with the support act. Say, would you like to headline? They say yes. Do you want to swap? And
so some bands like that. I mean, and we're not the only band to do that. We were chatting with some other bands. We were chatting with the guys from OMD not long ago. We bumped into them in Germany, and they said the same thing. You know, it's you know, you when you start off, you do a lot of that. You know, rubbing shoulders, and maybe they've got friends in the business. I have no idea, but we just don't. It's not. You know, we tend to the way we live. We're both very neighborhood. My hobbies are reading and going to the gym, and you know, my wife's a very social person, but we don't always socialize together.
We were talking about movie stars today, and what's interesting about that is when you watch, say, that, you know, when Ricky Gervais did the Golden Globes or whatever it was, and he did that whole thing. You think of it, what's interesting to us is the actors that aren't there.
Yeah,
you see Tom Hanks, you see the Al Pacinos and all that lot. But you think of all the actors that aren't there. So there's a whole load of actors, obviously, who completely
seem to
avoid that stuff. You know, you never see them there. And we're a little bit like that with the music thing. Yeah.
Wow. Look, 1989 came along and you two thought it would be a good idea to start your own pop group.
Well, it's not the first. Yeah.
Whose idea was it? Fred or Richard?
No,
neither really.
Neither, because we'd been doing it. Our first tour was 1978. So we'd been on the road, you know, in the UK, and then we moved to New York in 87, got signed by EMI in New York. Then we came back, and we was disillusioned with the big label thing and the deals. So we formed Right Said Fred in 1989, and we wanted to simplify it. So we went out with just the two of us, and sometimes a piano player. And we just went out playing pubs. We got bored with that very quickly because we like sort of noise, really, and we couldn't really make that much noise with just guitar and piano. That's when we decided to meet up with Rob Manzoli.
In the early days, there's a whole load of gigs we did in London, which are now gone. I mean, they're all the Mean Fiddler and the Orange and the Brecknock, and I mean, God knows, there's Red Cow. Yeah, I mean, London was absolutely full. In fact, there's one very famous. It was what's that one on the Moon in Dulwich?
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, there was a pub out in Dulwich. It was a big,
very famous gig, and that's all full of Guardians, or what do they call them now? So it's a shame, really, because London was a very vibrant for the young bands. It was a very vibrant place, and you could buy a pint of beer for £1, as opposed to £6 or whatever it is now. You know.
The Nashville.
Oh, the Nashville. We played the Nashville.
I mean, we used to do a lot of pubs. We became a bit of a pub band, really. But it's a shame that I was talking to someone else the other day about how good that the late 70s, early 80s scene was. It was incredibly vibrant, and although it had its problems, you know, with punk and new wave and stuff, had a few issues, but overall, that grassroots has gone. I think. I mean, there are some bands. There's a band out there called the Raytons, and they seem to be working in an old school business model, which seems to be doing well for them, which is great. But a lot of bands, you know, they rely on, you know, being spotted on some TV show or online, you know, which is, I suppose, it's just another route. Really.
Also, back in the day, if you were turned down by a particular gig, you knew there was another 20 gigs you could try. You know, there were so many of them that there was always that option of finding a place that you could play. Whereas now, because so many gigs have closed down, your options are much narrower. Same with labels. You know, back in the day, we had to make something like 30 demos or something because of all the independent labels and stuff that were out there. And now you could probably get away with half a dozen at the most.
They just send MP3s now.
They just send MP3s.
Yeah. Anymore, because the
whole music industry has changed so much over the years.
Yeah. Well, just recently we were asked to. What's that thing we were asked? We were asked to audition.
Oh yeah,
we were asked to audition
for The Voice.
For The Voice UK. Yeah, we were. And so I was very polite. Yeah, well, the office went back.
I can imagine, Fred.
Can you imagine? Can you
And,
imagine?
I was off. I was, yeah, we were, pretty honest. We just said, what would be the end result of this? And apparently there's a prize of some money.
You get half a dozen eggs and a loaf of bread.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, we're really polite. But the office went back and said, well, you do realize they've got co-writes on 4 number ones just in the last sort of 7 years, and multi-platinum and blah blah blah. And what would they be auditioning for, and to who? And what's the purpose of this? And they didn't really know, actually. I think they thought we were going to be grateful just to be on TV. But it was, yeah, I mean, they were very polite and everything, but I just thought, what a strange request.
Yeah. It's weird because we get more interest and support from Europe and America than we ever do here.
Yeah,
it's really weird.
Yeah, the UK is a pretty hostile environment for us.
For us, yeah. We don't have an agent over here. We don't have nothing.
We don't. And we
have nothing.
Yeah, we did a couple of shows this year, a couple of small festivals, and what we found, one was we did Jam for Freedom, which was a brand new festival, which I think they did a great job. And that audience they reminded me of the audiences we used to play 2 years ago. They were really up for just seeing what happened on stage. The expectations were sort of limited. Then we did another festival, which was a bit more of a legacy festival. And the audiences there, which is why we don't do a lot of retro shows, all they want to hear is a song they know. So they're not really interested in experimenting with longer versions or the sort of thing bands tend to do live. What they want to be. But in a way, when we were doing it, I was thinking, why don't they just hire a DJ?
They could have done that.
Why don't they bother with bands? Because there's some of the other artists on before us, all they did was cover versions.
Well, there's a guy who runs.
And we were thinking, what's the point of this?
There's a guy who runs a club, and he was saying to Fred that one of the problems is that trying to fill the club with people with a band that's playing original material is actually pretty difficult. To fill the club with a band that's playing covers, that's a tribute act, he said it's easy.
Yeah,
they're all over the place.
Yeah,
and that's one of the problems. And I think my feeling I always have this feeling that the people who are responsible for this are obviously the labels for not being adventurous and not putting the kind of support into new acts that they probably should. But also it's radio. I think radio has a huge role to play in facilitating access for new artists to a broader audience, rather than just playing the same, top 40 hits round and round and round. So I think
this is where internet radio has its own audience, because they are experimenting and will play just independent artists.
Yeah,
to give them that platform.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Well, we were talking to a producer the other day who just finished a record, and it's for a major artist, and they were going to the usual sort of mainstream radio stations. And the complaint of the record is that two things: it had real drums, and they don't like real drums. This is what they said. And this producer's well known; he's successful. And the other thing was the vocal took longer than 6 seconds to come in.
They wouldn't play it.
And they didn't want to play that. Yeah.
Okay, it has to have real drums.
No,
not real drums.
Not real, or real drums that don't sound real.
Yeah.
Okay, so plastic drums.
Yes.
And the vocal has to come in after 6 seconds.
Within
6 seconds.
Yes. Yeah. They want to hear a vocal within 6 seconds.
One of the things we heard back in
that's rubbish.
Yeah, it is rubbish. I agree.
This nonsense has been going on for years. Do you remember River Deep Mountain High?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the original version of that was something like over 4 minutes, something like
that.
Yes. And it was clear that radio made it clear they wouldn't play it. They just wouldn't play it. So Phil Spector, on the label, rather than editing it down to 3 minutes as they were demanding, he just put 3 minutes on the label, knowing that they would never time it.
Just repress the label. Yeah.
He just repressed the label. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So it was all
that's sneaky.
Yeah, exactly. Sneaky. But that's what you have to do. What you can't do, and what you should never do, is paying the attention to people who think they know more about music than the people who actually play it and write it.
Yeah, it's a very fickle industry now. It really is.
I think it's worse. I think it's possibly worse than it was because it's so celebrity driven. And what we noticed, we were offered some TV shows recently in Europe, which we've passed on, but the amount of artists out there who are performing on TV for nothing. They're not even covering. I think the TV companies are covering airfare, but not hotels or something like that. Yeah. And for years and years, if you go on a TV show that's not promo, it's where you're playing old songs.
Yeah,
they pay you. They pay you because it's not promotion. You're playing something that's already a hit, if you like.
yeah.
And that's changed a lot as well. So that I think some of it, like Rich was saying earlier, it's not just you can't just blame the people in suits.
No.
It's the artists
It's
as well.
Everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I think audiences have got lazy because of reality TV. They want to be spoon-fed music on their sofa. They don't want to go out, get in their car, and go and see a band. They can't be bothered.
One thing we were told, I don't know whether this is true,
Mm-hmm.
but at festivals, some people, what they do is when there's an act on stage, they Shazam it and wait for the song they want to hear. Then they'll rush to the stage to hear the song they want to hear
And leave.
and then leave.
You're joking.
And then
No.
go back to the tent.
No.
Yeah. Imagine doing that with Pink Floyd.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, we had a
mental.
conversation with European promoters, and we were just chatting with them, and because we're out on the road again next year, and in the States and stuff. We're talking about bands, and they were saying the success of legacy artists. They think is partly due to a lot of the audiences, the newer artists, have no they have no concentration ability or limited concentration. So he said we've got young artists coming on to festivals doing 15 minutes because their audience are not interested in more than 15 minutes of music from one band. So
Wow.
yeah, seriously. So he said we've got new bands coming on, and we can't give them more than 15, 20 minutes because the audiences simply are not interested in that amount of music from one artist. So he said, because I think one festival we're looking at, the turnover of bands was mental. It was, I don't know how many bands, but more than a normal festival, way more. And we were asking what's going on, why there's so many bands. And they said because the actual turnover is really quick because the younger audiences aren't always interested in hanging around for that amount of music from one artist. They want it to be like Spotify.
What's interesting, I remember when I was at school, when I was a kid, there was a guy, I can't remember his name now, who was a huge Beatles fan. And he introduced me to Sgt. Pepper's and blah, 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 blah. And I went to a party at that time, and they were playing, it turned out they were playing Pink Floyd. And I remember sitting there thinking, I was sitting on the beanbag, as you did back then, listening to this stuff, thinking, what sort of music is this? This is rubbish. Where's the hook? Everything's 10 minutes long. It's really, really boring, blah, blah, blah. What is interesting to me now is that they were way ahead of me. Pink Floyd were way ahead of me. They took me on a journey, and I understand that now. I understand what they were doing. But now that kind of adventurism in music is very limited. Very hard to find acts that will do that. And very hard, as Fred says, very hard to find an audience that has the patience to put up with that.
Yes, it's extraordinary.
It's
Dedicated, isn't it? Dedicated audience for specific artists.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, you started off with, you got your name from Bernard Cribbin's Right Said Fred song, right?
Yes,
We did.
But how many other song or group titles did you go through before landing on that's the one we're going to have?
we went through. We were called The Actors, In the Flesh, Peaches,
Trash, Flash and Money.
Trash Flash and Money is the name we got signed to in America. Then we had
Peaches.
Peaches. Yeah,
Where did you get Peaches
I
from?
don't know.
no idea.
I had
I think that came and went really quickly. I had No Trio
Oh, No Trio, yeah.
because we were three and then we became four. So it was that's right. We had about I would think between 7 and 10 altogether. Can't remember them all.
We tried going with the name Led Zeppelin for a while to attract an audience,
Yeah.
but it didn't work out. But yeah, we tried it. What the thing is with the name thing, we stuck with Right Said Fred because that's the name we had when we broke. If I'm Too Sexy had died, we would have come up with another name.
I think that's the same story Deep Purple tell.
Yeah,
and I
think it
think
is.
maybe Jethro Tull, which is those names stuck because that's when the band started to get some interest.
Yeah,
And I think Purple went through some different names. And I'm sure Jeff O'Toole did as well.
I think they did.
Yeah. So I don't think it's not uncommon for bands to chop and change names. And also particularly when you're young, you come up with some, the Silver Diamonds or whatever.
Yes.
And then so
that's good.
Yeah, isn't it?
That's
and
good.
And you go on the road for a bit and you think, that's a bloody dreadful name. And you change your you kind of just, Queen were called Smile, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
Yeah. So, you just do. The Beatles were the Quarrymen.
That's right, after their school.
Yeah.
So you change your names like you change your underwear.
Yes.
Well,
and also you kind of, it's like changing a name if you're a thief. You get away from, you know what I mean? Change your name, get away from the scene of the crime. So you move on. It's like that.
Well, 1991, your hit song, I'm Too Sexy, spent 6 weeks at number 2 in the charts and 3 months in the top 10.
Yep.
It also went to number 1 in 32 countries, including the USA, topping the Billboard Hot 100.
Correct.
And the chart earning you the Ivor Novello award nomination.
Yes.
However, that song was in fact about having, if I recall, you, Richard, on TikTok explaining that was about having sensitive nipples.
It was, yes.
And people who, people who used your gym. Now, if I'm correct, how did that actually launch the song? Sensitive nipples and people in your gym.
Well, the nipples thing is what happens with some boys when they go through adolescence, and I developed these lumps under each nipple, which was about the size of a small golf ball, kind of thing, and made them really sensitive. Couldn't wear a shirt or anything, and then went to the doctor, and he said, "Oh, it does happen. It's not off. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen when boys are going through puberty. This can happen," and that was the history of that. And the gym thing was,
was it just PR?
Well, it was partly PR. It was partly also we were working on another song, which was called Heaven, and the bass line of Heaven was da 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 da, and we came up with the idea of I'm too sexy for my shit, and that's all it was. And then so we had that basic idea, and then we took the idea. Fred wrote the list of the lyrics. Rob came up with the melody for the other section.
I'm a model.
I'm a model. You know what I mean? And it was kind of, it looked like it was all manufactured and sort of cohesive, but actually it was pretty disjointed. And it took us a good 6 months to kind of knit it all together and make sense of the track. And initially it had a minor key play out, which the whole song was about 7 minutes long.
Which is actually, we've returned to live.
Which we do now, actually. Yes.
Sex is about 7 minutes long now. We're going to this sort of trancey sort of chill out bit at the end of the song before we build it again.
Yeah.
But also when we were writing it, the basement, we were in a basement studio in Acton, and it was hot. It was a September, August, wasn't it?
I think
so. Like
August,
Indian
probably.
summer we were having.
Yeah.
And it was very stifling, very stuffy. And when we were running this thing through, Richard was walking around this guy's basement flat and actually sort of undid his shirt, which was part of so in a way, I'm sexy. My shirt, it's got two meanings: partly his nipples, and partly just being hot in the studio.
Yeah,
it's a bit of both.
Yeah, it's it's one of those songs. People often ask us, "Do you ever get tired of performing it?" And weirdly, I have not once on my life. I can say this. I've never, not even once, not wanted to perform it. There are other songs we've got that we do that I've thought, oh, okay, I could do without doing this tonight, but "Sexy" is not one of them. Never has been. And nor
it's an iconic tune, isn't it? You're never going to get tired of that song. It's just one of those songs that, along with Deeply Dippy and Don't Talk, Just Kiss. They are just the bread and butter of Right Said Fred. Really, they're the backbone that even I've come to know. So, since 1991, your music career just soared, releasing other songs. Like I just said, Don't Talk, Just Kiss, Deeply Dippy, Love for All Seasons. Yeah. Now, who inspired you? Well, inspired you both to become musicians?
Oh, that goes back.
Oh, that goes way back.
Probably you have to look at people like T-Rex.
One of my favourites.
Yeah, I love
I think
T-Rex.
Mark Bolan, very early David Bowie, Beatles, I suppose. I started playing guitar when I was about 12, maybe 13, which I started then playing bass, and we just started sort of writing together, really. And it's the only thing I've really enjoyed doing as a hobby. And neither of us are very good at being told what to do. So working,
That's a
having
man thing.
It's a man thing, yeah.
having a normal job.
I couldn't imagine getting a normal
No,
job.
I mean, we both did them. We both, worked in restaurants, bars, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind working in a gym because I was self-employed and I quite enjoyed that. But in terms of, a career, we definitely made the right choice. And that was, once we started playing, we didn't actually, although we took a very long time to become successful. I mean, probably, 10, 12 years, and much longer than most bands.
Yeah.
And although we got fed up in that time, we never actually said, let's stop and do something else. We never did that. We're quite stubborn in that way. If we think we think we're right and we're getting poorly served, we tend to be pretty resilient, which is what happened over here in the mid-90s. We got, the mainstream media. We've had no support from radio or the mainstream media in the UK for about 30 years now, 29, 30 years. And all our 99% of all our support is abroad. We get complaints over here, why aren't you playing in the UK? Well, we don't get offers. Our value here is probably a 30% of what our value is in Europe. So, and next year we've been offered a very nice run in America. But over here, in the UK, we get treated pretty poorly. Agents won't touch us. Promoters don't like working with us. And so what you do is
Now, why is that though, Fred? Why don't promoters like working with you? I can't think of one single reason.
We talk about this all the time. We really do. Neither of us have got a clue.
No, I mean, some people say it's because of our speaking out over COVID, but that's partly true, but it's not.
It's not the whole story.
No, because we have been playlisted since 94, 95. And the only songs mainstream radio will play is Deeply Dippy, Don't Touch Us, Kiss or Sexy. They just will not consider another song from us. And even when we've had very big hits abroad, like You're My Mate or Stand Up or Tide, they won't consider it. And so I think sometimes it was interesting. I think it was Paul Gambaccini. I think it was Paul Gambaccini we met, and he said, "You'll never be forgiven in the UK." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Because you proved everybody wrong." He said, "Sexy wasn't just a hit." He said, "It's part of pop culture now."
Yeah.
And he said, the British music industry got it wrong, horribly wrong, and they'll never forgive you." That's now.
What did they get wrong?
They turned it down.
Everybody turned it down.
Yeah.
No one would touch it. No one would play it. And then what happened was, God bless him, Simon Bates and Gary Crowley both played it off the acetate. And Simon Bates at the time had a massive breakfast show, and the phones went mental. It was populism, actually. It was
getting straight to the people.
It's going straight to the people, without the gatekeepers.
Yeah.
And then when we spoke out during COVID, I think that added insult to injury for some people. We're persona non grata over here. And to be honest with you, we used to care years ago, and now we don't care. We make a very good living abroad. We're incredibly lucky with our writing credits, and so we don't let it concern us.
Also, I think you have to be. It's important if a family member that you trust comes up with an attitude towards a song that you've done and criticizes you or criticizing it, you take it on board, and if it chimes with something you've already felt, you take it seriously.
Yeah.
Very often you're getting turned down or rejected by people that you don't know, never heard of, probably don't respect, probably don't like, and so it's incumbent upon you not to take it seriously. So if somebody at some radio station somewhere doesn't like what we do, and I don't know who they are, I don't know their name, I don't know what they look like, why would I take it seriously? Yeah. So it's that, and also as Fred says, we don't take the no easily. So my thing, and I think it's probably true of Fred as well, if somebody says no, that's a really good reason for doing it. It's like when they say don't smoke behind the bike sheds. What does everybody?
Yeah, don't touch the fire.
Don't touch the fire. Don't it's that. Don't. The
Don't
minute,
stick that in your ear.
don't stick that in your ear. First thing you do is stick it in your ear.
Yeah,
So,
don't talk to a podcaster. Da-da-da-da-da.
Exactly.
Now,
Yeah.
your song "God Sends,"
Yes.
which dubbed you as the UK's most controversial band, we just tipped on it slightly. What is this COVID speak out thing that you did then, or is
Well,
it hush?
No, it's not hush.
No, it's not hush.
We went to the mistake. Not mistake. It's the wrong word. What we did when there was a demonstration at Trafalgar Square, the very early days, there was a big meeting at Trafalgar Square. We went up literally to have a look. That's all it was. Curious. I'd never been to a demo before, ever. And we sort of sat on the balustrade, which is around Trafalgar Square, and watched. But obviously, we were then papped, and people like Piers Morgan then lost their
Daily Mail
threw their toilet out the pram. Our thing has always been do whatever you want to do, but please don't tell me what to do. That's all it is. If you want to have the jab, that's absolutely cool. If you want to have a leg cut off because you like hopping around, that's up to you. But please don't expect me to do it. And there was a that's all. People call us anti-vaxxers. That's absolutely not what we are. Our thing is always exactly what Robert Kennedy is saying right now, which is let's see the data. That's all we're asking. And that's what everybody should do. If you go to a hospital and they're going to tell you about an operation you're going to have, they tell you what the upsides are, the downsides are, the risks are. That they do. But I knew a lady I was quite friendly with her, who was in a care home. She was 82 and she was taken for the jab. She wasn't even asked. Nobody talked to her about it. Nobody asked her about it. Nobody said you can refuse this if you want to. Nobody said that. They just took her down into the shower bang down to the local race course where they were doing everybody else. Jab, 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 jab. That's all it was. So our problem was right from the beginning. Choice. Consent and be informed. That's all it is.
I think also what happened is that the mainstream media, I mean, you've only got to look at the lockstep that went right across the world with Build Back Better, and then there was, the vaccination rhetoric, and you saw it everywhere. You saw it on Piers Morgan or Julie Hartley Brewer or Morning TV, Fox TV, Howard Stern. They all followed the same kind of script, if you like. And all we were saying is we got immediately, anti-vax and COVID deniers and blah, blah, blah. And all we said was, maybe we can ask some questions. Is that so terribly? And then Richard was taken to hospital. And what happened is he had fallen in the bath. And I'd gone down there and I had bandaged. He had a really bad cut. I've still got the pictures, actually. He had a really bad cut. My daughter's a doctor. So I phoned her up and showed her the head injuries. And she said, you need to get someone to come and look at this. He was very confused and sort of
more than usual.
And there was a lot of blood. So doctor came over and doctor said, I think you need to go and get checked out of hospital. We need to get you to hospital. Because he went to hospital during COVID, all the press said he went to hospital because of COVID. That is not true. It's not true. I was in the room when the doctor was there, and and so they jumped on that, and then Piers Morgan lost his mind, whatever's left of it, again, as did the press, and they just came after us, really. So being controversial in the UK,
it's not difficult.
The UK is such a beige, bland country. It's not difficult.
Well, ask Alison Pearson.
Yeah, look what's happened to her recently.
How she writes for the Telegraph. How controversial is that?
Yeah. So we don't think our position's changed. We're always quite curious about things and ask questions, and I think one of the things that surprised us was the complicity of the music and entertainment business. Yeah, I think that's what we were expecting, an awful lot of pushback from people in the business, because particularly in music, if you go back to the Joan Baez and Bob Dylan and Country Joe and the Fish and all that, they back then were very, very culturally. They commented on the culture at the time. Yeah. And they were very, very outspoken about Vietnam and about racism.
Yeah.
So we were sort of expecting the industry over here, the music industry particularly, to be a lot more not rebellious. That's not quite the right word, but questioning. But questioning, really. And we were surprised that it wasn't. It really was a big surprise to us. I mean, I remember going to one of the demos in London back in the day, and I noticed that on Broadway, not Broadway, in the West End, in theatres, people, actors and actresses were all being asked or coerced to get the jab, whatever it was. So I wrote to Equity and I wrote to the MU as to what their position was. And what was interesting, there was at no demonstration did we ever see a big banner of the MU, say the MU, up for musicians who had decided not to. There was no, and when I spoke to it, I think it was MU or Equity, I can't remember which, but they said, "Oh no, we're working behind the scenes." No, you're not. No, you're not. You're just keeping your head down. That's what you're doing.
I mean, our agent in Holland, he wouldn't tell us who. We got cancelled from a lot of shows, and he said some of the cancellations are because the other artists don't want you on the bill. And it was all through, really. And that was so
really,
seriously, because of us speaking out. And and when you look at certain artists, I mean, how they did, pictures with them getting jabbed and they're masked up, and the so-called rebels like Liam Gallagher, they just capitulated and followed suit. It was extraordinary. No one asked any questions. I mean, Noel Gallagher asked a few questions, but the so-called outspoken, what was left of punk, they all just complied.
What was interesting about Justin Bieber was Justin Bieber had Bell's palsy, I think.
He did, apparently.
He got Bell's palsy and showed pictures, published pictures of his face soon after the jab, and he was, quite bad, looked like he'd had a stroke, and was speaking out, and then nothing.
It's like someone had a word.
Like somebody had a word,
Yeah.
So that was the thing for me. I was very, very disappointed in a way in Bob Dylan. Actually, there's a guy called 5 Times August who writes
great songs,
a great songwriter in America, and he's writing the stuff I think Bob Dylan should be writing right now. Much more cynical, much more questioning, much more aware of what's going on, and aware of the fact that people are lying.
Yeah,
people are lying to us about all sorts of stuff, and you don't need to know what the lies are specifically. You don't even need to know who's telling them, but you need to know that they're out there.
I mean, some bands.
It's a conspiracy, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, some bands did quite a lot of asking questions in their music. People like Van Morrison and Muse,
Eric Clapton,
and then also Tom McDonald, 5 Times August, High Res the rapper. Quite a few people like that. The British scene was pretty weak, really, in that regard, So that's why I think why we stood out, really.
Well, I really felt for Eric Clapton, because Eric Clapton really told his story.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
That's what he did. He just told his story, and he got hammered for it.
I mean, Brian
made
him a Fruit Loop.
A Fruit Loop. I mean, it's extraordinary. It was really quite horrible what went on. And it would have been nice if musicians had been a bit more, first of all, a bit more cohesive and a little bit more mutually supportive.
Just understanding.
But they weren't. Yeah, they weren't.
Well, apart from people you saw in your gym and about adolescence growing up, where else would you get your inspiration from for your songs?
It depends on the song. I mean, we had a song called Tide that did very well, and that song was written about our mum, really, because she died of Alzheimer's in 2016, and that was about time passing.
Yeah,
that was about making the most of what's of now, really.
Yeah.
Let things slip. Wrote a song called "We're All Criminals" that was written about state surveillance, about the deep state. And the rules change are so intrusive now. It's hard not to be a criminal. Recently we had a song called "You're in the Light Is Love" that was just about basically people being nice to each other, really. So it depends on. We've got working on a new song at the moment. We just want to do a euphoric sort of evangelical,
cheer people up a bit.
Yeah, so that'll be out next year. We just did a cover version of "Beloved Sweet Harmony" that did very well, and that was about people coming together, really.
Well, you did the stand up, didn't you? The stand up song. That's for the athletes.
Stand Up for the Champions became a massive sports song.
It started off actually. Funnily enough, we wrote it about first responders after 9/11.
Yeah,
that's who we wrote it.
Yes,
Invisible Heroes. Yeah.
Yes,
and then it got used by sports companies, and that's how it's known now, really.
Yeah,
well, we actually wrote it about all those first responders that go in at these terrible events that you see like 9/11,
Yeah.
and the unsung heroes, if you like. Going back to the We're All Criminals, we have a T-shirt made up which says We're All Criminals on it. And I was sitting out, and I was sitting
That's
outside,
not controversial at all, is it?
and I was sitting outside having a coffee where I live, and I was just sitting there on a sunny day with this T-shirt on, and two coppers came over and asked me what I was doing.
Why are you wearing that?
Why are you wearing that? Yeah. Honestly, it's amazing. It's my father or our father would not believe it.
Yeah, man.
Would not believe it. No, it's extraordinary.
Yeah, it's not hard to
Terrible,
be.
isn't it? This country's going to the dogs. It really is.
Yeah, it's in the mess, man. Yeah.
If you could perform with any living artist, if they would have you,
That's the question. That's the question. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
If you could perform with any living artist, who would it be and why?
Probably
Question, actually.
a DJ. I mean, I think Calvin Harris and Robin Schultz are really interesting DJs. They do really interesting approaches to dance music. So maybe in terms of bands,
For me, it would be a guy called Darius Rucker. Darius Rucker.
Rucker, is it? Yeah.
Darius Rucker, who's a black country singer, and
Oh, right.
I love what he does.
Great singer.
Really, he was in Hootie and the Blowfish
That's right. Yeah.
before, and now he's out Darius Rucker doing solo stuff, and I love his voice and I love the stuff he does. So I can imagine I'd like to do a song with him, but that's the first one that comes to mind, really.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you be adverse to putting a country swing to your music?
Well, we have. We've done it before. We had a song called "Sweet Wonderful You" that was on an album, which actually got very well reviewed in a Nashville music magazine.
It did, yeah.
And we did another song called "Miracle of Love," and that's got a country vibe as well. So four on the floor country.
I listen to a lot of country.
We both listen to. I think the new Americana stuff from Brothers Osborne and
Blake Sheldon.
yeah, some of that stuff's really interesting. So we are, and I like really old country as well, like Hank Williams. So we have thought about it and we have done it a couple of times. But to be honest with you, people are quite narrow-minded with what they want from artists, and people only want certain things from us, really. And in a way, I do understand that. When I listen to ZZ Top, I know what I want. I'm not listening to them to go into a reggae groove. It's a blues band. So I think I do get that. But we have dabbled a couple of times.
But you end up subconsciously you end up sort of writing music that you imagine performing.
Yeah, you do.
You just do.
That's true.
It's a weird psychological. I remember we talked to, I don't know whether you talked to Barry Gibb about this or whether it was I saw on a talk show. My mind's going, but anyway, he said when they're writing songs, he said in a way we like everything to be really crap, because if it's really crap, we know we don't have to promote it. Sometimes if you come up with a really good idea, you think, oh no, radio shows at 5:30 in the morning and videos and all that kind of stuff. So you're always split slightly. You want it to be really good, but on the other hand, if it's really good, it comes with all sorts of other stuff. So it's a weird thing,
Now, you've shared a lot of your life with me or going into the music industry. So if you could give a new budding musician any advice, what would it be?
It's easy.
Hold on to your master rights and your publishing rights as long as you possibly can. Don't go into a meeting unless you've got some leverage.
Also, don't ever think that the only people on the other side of the desk are the ones with the leverage. They're not.
No.
The ones with the leverage are you.
Content holders.
Because you're the content holder.
Yeah.
And when we started, I always thought that the guy behind the desk was the man. He was the man. That's not true. We were the men, and we just didn't know it.
Yeah.
So the new artists, you must remember the only reason you're sitting there is because the guy behind the desk wants your shit. And that's what you've got to remember that.
And also try. I mean, it's very, very difficult, and we failed at it. But try and visualize what it would be like for you if you got what you think you want.
Yes.
I never for a second imagined being a celebrity. Not for a millisecond. Never crossed my mind that if you have a hit record, certainly in the pop genre, you will become a celebrity. I hadn't thought about it.
No, neither of us did.
No, and so which is why we changed mid-90s. We kind of completely changed our business model, for want of a better word. But you have to think about it. People just think, well, I want to be famous, I want to be successful. Well, do you? Do you know what you want? Don't wait for people to give you what you want.
Yeah.
Try and know what you want.
Also see it as
it's a very difficult question.
Also see it as a journey. I mean, what I used to do, I think maybe we both did, was we saw it as a destination. And there is no destination. There's no place you end up that will make you happy.
Yeah.
The happiness comes from the journey that you're making.
That you're on.
And that you're on. And that's the part to treasure, rather than this continually sort of forward planning. We learned it domestically with our family when Dad died just before Christmas. I'd been looking forward to Christmas with Mum and Dad, and then Dad dies.
Yeah.
And suddenly, it was all rubbish. And so I suddenly learned, don't think too far ahead. Just enjoy the day, enjoy the moment you're in, and enjoy the journey that you're on. And sometimes it'll be crap. Sometimes it will be rubbish, and some days will be horrible. But it is part of the journey. But there is no destination. There's no buff.
That sounds like life in general, doesn't it? Really?
It is. It is life in general.
Exactly
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Absolutely.
So really, not to be disillusioned by the music industry. It's not all glamour and glitz.
No, it's not. No. And don't be. As we we're seeing more and more, the music industry can be a very toxic place. Certainly in certain areas, as we're seeing in the States. So tread carefully.
Yeah, the thing. Do you remember a film called Sex, Lies and Videotape?
Yes.
Yes. Well, there's a story about the director of that movie, and he said he had more fun sitting at home watching the award that he got than he would have had if he'd gone there to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, I've got your new single called your album called The Singles, and I absolutely love it. And I love the two renditions you got of I'm Too Sexy, because you got like the club version of I'm Too Sexy.
That's right.
And you've got this German sounding version as well, which is absolutely fantastic. So I love it. So your new album, the Singles, is packed with obviously some of the 90s greats and some new tunes as well. Yeah. Is there a new album coming soon?
There's a new single.
There's a new single. I mean,
we're independent, so albums cost a lot of money.
Yeah, I think albums. I done maybe an EP. We're looking at the next single might be an EP, but not an album at the moment. No, I mean we'll see after we've got quite a busy year next year, so maybe after summer we'll look at it and see what you have. In a way, when you're in an independent band like we are, you have to do things for a reason. Well, I suppose most bands should do this really, and there's no point.
Well, it does help.
Doing it for a reason.
But what I mean is that some bands do an album because they're contracted to.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yes.
They may not have the material, they may not have the desire, but they're contracted to fulfill the contract, if you like them.
Yeah, but they also have writers write their songs for them, whereas you write your own material.
Yeah. So I suppose we might do an album. I wouldn't think maybe 2026. I don't know, to be honest with you. I suppose we'll just wait and see what comes along with it.
Yeah. Also, if we did an album, I'd want to make it very. And what we did in the past, we thought every single track needed to be a lead track.
Right. Okay.
Right. And we spent a fortune and making every single track a lead track. What we know now, which we should have learned 35 years ago, is that you need 2 or 3 lead tracks on the album, and the rest you can not please yourself, but you can do the kind of stuff you might want to try when you don't have the pressure of the chart thing on your head. So if we did another album, that's what we'd have to remember, which is to do 2 or 3 lead tracks and then do the rest of the stuff as we might want to if we weren't under pressure.
Sounds fair enough.
That would be more fun, I think. Yeah.
So what is new for Right Said Fred?
We go out on the road in January. We're in South Africa. Back in the studio, finishing this new track, January, February. Then we're out again in May, and then July, August, September. July, I think we're in America.
Yep.
Then I think we're in Austria, Hungary, Czech. I can't remember where else.
Yeah.
Different, Ibiza. I think we got shown Ibiza.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're just we're just out doing stuff, and we'll put out some new tracks next year, probably a couple, maybe 3.
Yeah.
And we'll see what comes along.
I mean, in a way, if you're an independent artist, particularly, you have to react to what happens to you.
Yeah.
Because there's not the label behind you financing, but what the next album, regardless of how this album goes. So as Fred says, everything has to make sense. So if we do a song and it dies a death, and it's cost us $5,000 to do, or 10 grand to do, whatever it is,
you'll change your name.
We change our name and flee the country. Yeah, exactly.
Look, it's been great having you on the show, and come back anytime. And if you ever get a gig, and you've got a spare backstage pass or whatever, just think of me.
Okay.
All right.
But seriously though, congratulations on your music career. You've had an absolute blast from the 90s, even right the way through to 2024.
Yeah.
And may it continue. So
thanks,
Thank
Phil.
you. Let's hope so.
certainly from me. And don't forget, you can hear all of the other great artists that's been on my show on tinyurl.com/Neil Clark. So from myself, Neil Clark, and my special guests, Richard and Fred Fairbrass of Right Said Fred, say goodbye, guys.
Thanks, Neil.
Thanks, Neil.
Lost
Thank
love.
you very much. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Very enjoyable. Thank you.
Have a good Christmas.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, you too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, try to stay less controversial.
We will.
That won't be easy.
Santa Claus does exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cheers, Neil. Thank you.
You
Cheers
take
now.
care. Cheers
Bye-bye.
now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.